Hello, students, and welcome. Now, think about this. How does a tiny little seed turn into a huge, strong plant? You know, the ones that give us our food? Well, just like we need our dal, roti, and vegetables to grow big and strong, plants also need food. Today, we're going to explore exactly what's on a plant's menu. So, let's begin. So, just like us, plants need food to grow. You ate your breakfast or your lunch today to get energy, isn't it? Well, plants are living beings too, and they need their own special diet. But the thing is, they can't exactly go to the kitchen and make a meal. So the big question is, what exactly is on their menu? Where do they get their food from? Let's find out. Okay, so here is what we are going to cover today. First, we'll look at a plant's basic diet. Then, we'll understand the difference between macro and micronutrients. After that, we'll talk about feeding the soil using manure, and also the quick boost from fertilizers. We'll compare the two, and finally, we'll discuss farming for the future. Right, so let's start with our first topic, a plant's basic diet. The most basic question is, where do these nutrients actually come from? Well, it's not from just one place. Plants get what they need from three main sources in their environment. See, it's quite simple. Plants get their nutrients from the air, from water, and from the soil. From the air, they take in carbon and oxygen. You might remember this from your lessons on photosynthesis. From water, which is H2O, they get hydrogen and more oxygen. But the most important source really is the soil. The soil is like a big kitchen pantry for the plant, providing the remaining 13 essential nutrients that it absolutely needs to survive and grow. Okay, now for our next section, macro versus micronutrients. It's really all about the quantity. You see, of those 13 nutrients that come from the soil, the plant doesn't need all of them in the same amount. It's just like our diet, right? We need a lot of carbohydrates and proteins, but only a tiny bit of salt. Similarly, plants have different requirements, so we classify the nutrients into two groups. So here they are, macronutrients and micronutrients. The names themselves give you a clue. Macro means large, so macronutrients are the nutrients that plants require in large quantities. The most famous examples are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Then you have micro, which means small, so micronutrients are needed in very small quantities. Think of iron, manganese, and boron. Now this is very important to remember. Just because they are needed in small amounts does not mean they are less important. Both are absolutely essential for a healthy plant. So what do these main macronutrients actually do? Let's take a look. First, nitrogen. Nitrogen is essential for the growth of leaves. It gives them that healthy green color, so you can think of it as the leaf maker. Next is phosphorus. This one is very important for strong root growth and also for the development of flowers and fruits. And then we have potassium. Potassium helps with the overall health of the plant. It's like the plant's immune system, helping it to resist diseases. Now, what do you think happens if a plant doesn't get enough of these nutrients? Well, it leads to what we call a deficiency. It's just like when we don't get enough vitamins in our food, we can become weak or fall sick. The same thing happens to plants. They show poor growth, they become much more likely to catch diseases, and most importantly for us, they produce less food. This means lower crop yields for the farmer. All right, let's move on. We're now going to talk about feeding the soil. And we'll start with manure, the organic approach. Think about it. If crops are grown in the same soil year after year, they will use up all the nutrients, right? So we have to find a way to put those nutrients back. For centuries, farmers have been using a natural method to do this. Let's look at the different types of manure. First, we have compost and vermicompost. This is when you take farm waste, cow dung, and even waste from your kitchen like vegetable peels and let it all decompose in a pit. If you introduce earthworms into this pit, they help the process go faster, and that's called vermicompost. Then there's another interesting type called green manure. Here, farmers will grow certain plants like sun hemp, and then they just plow them back into the soil. This enriches the soil with nutrients, especially nitrogen and phosphorus. Manure has many, many benefits. Of course, it enriches the soil with nutrients and organic matter, but it does much more. It actually improves the structure of the soil. For example, in sandy soils, it increases the water holding capacity, so the soil doesn't dry out too fast. And in clay soils, which can get waterlogged, it improves drainage. So you see, manure is not just food for the plant, it is also medicine for the soil. So, that was the organic approach. Now let's look at a different method, what we can call the quick boost. This is where fertilizers come in. These are commercially produced nutrients. So what exactly are fertilizers? Well, they are basically plant nutrients that are produced commercially in factories. They are designed to supply specific elements like nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in a concentrated form. The main goal is to ensure good vegetative growth. That means healthy leaves and stems, and ultimately to get higher yields from the crops. Fertilizers sound very useful, don't they? They give quick results, but what happens when we use too much of them? Is there a downside? Let's explore that. Yes, there are major risks if we use fertilizers excessively. The first big problem is water pollution. Any excess fertilizer that the plant doesn't absorb gets washed away by rain or irrigation water. This water then flows into rivers and lakes and pollutes them. The second problem is soil degradation. The continuous use of these chemicals can harm the microorganisms in the soil. And remember, fertilizers do not add any organic matter, so over a long time, they can actually destroy the soil's fertility. This brings us to a very important comparison. A tale of two feeds, if you will, manure versus fertilizers. So, which one should a farmer choose? Let's compare them directly. Let's break it down. Manure, as we know, is organic. It adds small amounts of all nutrients and is excellent for long-term soil health, but its nutrients are released slowly. On the other hand, fertilizers are chemical and commercially made. They add large amounts of specific nutrients and provide a very rapid boost to the plant. However, as we just discussed, they can degrade soil health over time. So you can think of it this way. Manure feeds the soil, while fertilizers feed the plant directly. So what is the answer? The real goal is to find a balance between getting good yields in the short term and maintaining the fertility of the soil for the long term. And think about that for a moment. Why is long-term soil fertility so important? Well, because we will need this very same soil to grow food for many, many years to come. So how do we achieve this balance? This leads us to our final section, farming for the future. We need a sustainable solution. And one of the best sustainable solutions we have is called organic farming. What is organic farming? It is a farming system where there is minimal or even zero use of chemical fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides. Instead, the focus is on using organic manures, recycled farm waste, and what are known as bioagents to maintain the health of the soil and the crops. This statement here really captures the essence of sustainable agriculture. The goal is to increase food production without degrading our environment and disturbing the balances maintaining it. This is the challenge we must meet. And so this is the final thought I want to leave you with. We need to feed billions of people on our planet. So the great question for all of us is this: how do we do it without harming the very soil that sustains us? This is one of the most important challenges for our future. Thank you for listening so carefully today.